Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me with this Friday's Lunch and Learn here at Abundant Health and Wellness. Now, today we're going to talk about vaccines again. If I could tell you how many people have questioned me about the vaccines, if I had a penny for everybody that did, I'd probably have $1 million right now. I had a lady in my office this morning whose father-in-law took the vaccine. He took the first shot, and within 24 hours, he had some seizures and suffered an embolism. So this is very, very important information. There's just a lot of things going on with this vaccine. I'm going to post in the comments an article that I'm referencing, and also I'm going to post a video. Now, the video was shared with us by a friend at church, and actually shared with my husband. So thank you, Bill, for that. I appreciate that. And I've watched it twice. And when I went to rewatch it again this morning, the fact checkers had fact checked it as containing false information. So I'm gonna let you watch it. You can make your own decision because you're really, really smart. And we know, I mean, it's getting absolutely ridiculous that if there's something out there that the powers that be don't want you to know about, they tell the fact checkers to mark it and they hide it, and then we're only getting one side of the story. And so part of what I do with these Facebook Lives is to give you more of the story, give you some resources, give you some guidance on how to find out what is best for you. Okay, it's all about education. Knowledge is power. And so I really want to make sure that you have all the knowledge that I can possibly give you in a 30-minute discourse here on the Facebook Live. If you're watching this on Monday, remember the links, the references won't be there. It takes too long for YouTube to upload this, so you'll get your links on Monday, so just bear with me and know that that's going to happen. All right, so the title of this article is The Push to Explore Vaccine Risks. Okay, and this is something that we need to be aware of. Remember, in 1986, okay, Ronald Reagan was the president, and Congress got him to sign a bill that totally indemnified vaccine makers from any risks associated with vaccines. Now, vaccines are called drugs. I didn't know that until I've been doing this research. I thought a drug was a medication that you injected, and a vaccine was something that you injected into your arm, right? But apparently they are calling vaccines drugs as well. So that's just something that was new to me. Anyway, the vaccine makers are totally indemnified. That means nobody can sue them if something goes wrong with you. And so if I know that I'm not going to be sued or held responsible if something goes wrong, then I may not do my due diligence to make sure everything is absolutely right. Now, I don't think that anybody has any nefarious motives necessarily, but anytime you're doing testing, anytime you're trying to figure out things, it costs a lot of money. The video I'm going to give you is referencing, the doctor that's on there is Dr. Lee Merritt. She is a military doctor, so she's worked for the government. She's very, very smart, and she says that the vaccine industry is a $69 billion industry. So who has the most to gain for all of us taking a vaccine? Well, it's the people that make them. And so you have to follow the money. And am I going to be benefited if I take this particular vaccine? Now, as of today, when I looked just a few moments ago, there are still only 2 vaccines for COVID-19 that have been approved for emergency use here in the United States. One is the Moderna vaccine and one is the Pfizer vaccine. They both are mRNA vaccines. So we're going to get to that in a moment, but let's just talk about vaccines in general. Now, if you remember last week when we were talking, maybe it was the week before, but I think it was last week, there was a doctor that said these shots that we are being asked to take are not really vaccines. They are software platforms. So I don't know about you, but I don't really want a software platform in my human body, okay? So I don't really want that. So with vaccines, the core issue is safety. Informational inserts that accompany vaccines warn of a long list of possible health risks, including death. However, health officials say that such scenarios are rare and insignificant compared to the massive public benefits provided by vaccination programs. All right, there is an institute called the Institute of Medicine, IOM, okay, and it has a problem. It says that it has found the research looking at vaccines and adverse events doesn't show adequate evidence to either accept or reject a causal relationship between vaccines and health problems. Now, as I talked about earlier, the vaccine court, there is a VAERS, VAERS, and that stands for Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. If you have a vaccine or you give your child a vaccine and you have a negative reaction, then you're supposed to report it to your doctor. Your doctor is then supposed to report it to this agency. The conservative estimates are that only 1% of vaccine injuries were ever reported. Now, if you do go to this vaccine court and you do sue for damages, it's a very, very small percentage. I can't remember exactly what the percentages are, but it's a very small percentage of payouts that they get, and the government actually pays you, compensates you for the vaccine injury. I think to date, it's been about $4 billion that have been paid out, which is not a whole lot of dollars since 1986, okay? So that's really, really important. So this IOM, Institute of Medicine, says that the problem is, so they say, is that the studies, and this is a quote, studies designed to examine the long-term effects of the cumulative number of vaccines or other aspects of immunization schedule have not been conducted. All right? There are exactly the studies required to evaluate true safety of the current vaccine schedule. Now, a couple of decades ago, maybe a couple of generations ago, I should say, children were vaccinated for about 7 different diseases, okay? Now, there are 70 shots required for school, 70 shots for 18 different diseases. So that is just a lot more vaccinations than what we used to have. I remember, and my mom can probably correct me if I'm incorrect on this. I did not look at statistics on this, so this is just off the top of my head. I remember getting the polio sugar cube, okay? I remember getting the MMR. That's about all I remember. Of course, this was back in the 60s, right? Whenever we were going to school. My children, well, we did not know what we know now about vaccines, but my son had a vaccine and he did have a very minor adverse reaction to the DPT. His doctor, we lived in Scotland at the time, his doctor said, do not ever give this child another vaccine because he is very much at risk for a vaccine injury. So I never did. But even so, we didn't have 70 different vaccines from the age of birth until graduation from high school, okay? So it says the peculiar regulatory regimen for these parents invites suspicion. This is what the IOM says. Unlike most other manufacturers, those that produce the vaccines are protected from liability if their products are found to cause harm. We talked about that. In other words, they can't be sued for not testing their products enough to find common side effects. This protection is granted through the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, which instructs parents who seeks compensation to try their case in a special vaccine court. Now, the IOM has asked the Centers for Disease Control to do a study of vaccinated children versus unvaccinated children. I think they told the CDC in 2003 to do that. And let me just give you, surprise, surprise, CDC has not done that. But there are approximately 65 other studies that have been conducted that are researching the side effects or the health conditions of vaccinated children versus unvaccinated children. All of them, and this is a quote, all of them show dramatically better health in unvaccinated children. We have found no studies that show superior health outcomes in vaccinated children. The studies point to an alarming trend, but by design, they merely show correlation, not causation. Furthermore, researchers from the most recent study notes that there are limitations with their data. Now, what they have found is the strongest relationships observed from the vaccinated children were asthma. Your vaccinated child is going to have a 4.5 times greater chance of having asthma than a non-vaccinated child. They have developmental delays. They're more than twice as likely to have developmental delays, and they are twice as likely to have inner ear infections, okay? It says there is no association necessarily with gastrointestinal disorders in the primary analysis, but, there's a big but here, a significant relationship was detected as vaccine doses accumulated. Now, I want to just kind of veer off the beaten path a little bit. How many of you would raise your hand and say, yes, Dr. Polly, when I took my child in to have the vaccinations, I asked to see the vaccine insert and the doctor let me see it? Probably that would be 0 people, okay? There's no mandatory requirement. There is something called informed consent, and the only way you can have informed consent is if you look at the vaccine ingredients and you know what all of those chemicals are, and most of us do not know that, okay? The vaccine insert is tiny, tiny print. When you open up to the ingredients, and I have seen this, I have printed this, I have posted this, you can go and you can Google it and you can get those vaccine inserts and you can look at the different ingredients that are in there. Now, as a Christian, and I don't make any kind of apologies for being a Christian, but as a Christian, I do not want to put anything in my body that has aborted fetal cells in it. And if you look at the vaccine insert, they're going to say either aborted fetal cells or diploid human cells, or there are some kind of acronyms depending on which fetus was used, right? Well, if you're not educated to know that, you would not know that that was aborted fetal tissue, okay? In some vaccines, there is formaldehyde. What do you use formaldehyde for? Well, you use formaldehyde for embalming people. You use formaldehyde for tanning skins. Okay, you use formaldehyde for a number of reasons, but formaldehyde is not a life-giving substance, okay? In many vaccines, there is aluminum. Aluminum is a neurotoxin, all right? In some vaccines, there is thimerosal. So thimerosal also is a neurotoxin. And so you have to really understand what you're looking at in order to make a really, really good decision for you. So the point being with this study, it says that gastrointestinal problems are cumulative. That means the more vaccines you have, the more adjuvants. Now, an adjuvant is a big word, and it just means added ingredient. Now, they put this chemical in there to elicit a stronger immune response, okay? But the aluminum and the thimerosal and the formaldehyde can cross the blood-brain barrier and lodge in the brain. I'm saying no thank you. Okay, that's my personal opinion. That's my personal decision for myself and my family. I hope they pay attention. We really don't want to be doing that. So there was a doctor, Dr. Bernadine Healy, Healy. She did an interview in 2008. She was the former head of the National Institute of Health. She explained that the regulators have been too quick to dismiss concerns over vaccines without actually studying the population. And then this is a quote: the reason they don't want to look at those susceptibility groups is that if they found them, no matter how big or how small they would scare the public away from doing these vaccines. So that takes us back to 1986. There were a lot of anti-vaxxers back in 1986 and before who were telling people don't do these vaccines and all that kind of stuff. The vaccine makers were losing money. The lobbyists went to the Congress. They lobbied them to get this bill passed so that they would be indemnified from having to pay out, because obviously it would bankrupt the company if they had to pay out for all of those vaccine injuries. So that's kind of the history on that. And this doctor, who is the head, or was the head, of the National Institutes of Health, saying that it would scare the people away. She died in 2011. She remained a strong proponent of vaccines, but she also said that she believed the public would be in favor if we could prove that they were safer. Okay? That has never been proved. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the video. I'm going to post the video. I think it's about a 30-minute video. And if I can still get it, I have it up on my computer. So far, so good. Okay, so I'm going to try and post the link in there. But this is by this doctor, like I say, Dr. Lee Merritt. She's a medical doctor. She was a military doctor. She says, and this is from a medical perspective. This is not the Dr. Polly perspective, okay? Because remember, I am not a medical doctor. I do not play one on TV. I am an educator. I'm a naturopath. We do things differently. But this is a medical doctor, and she says that in her learned opinion as a military doctor, that the virus, the COVID virus, is a bioweapon, all right? She says that this is the weaponization of medicine. Now, this is really, really important. I think this video was shown the first time on January the 14th, 2021. So this past January. She says that when she was looking at her information, because everything was on lockdown, she wasn't seeing patients, all that, medical people can do when they're in that situation is that they research. She said she went through old texts and she found that there were these medications that would go in and disrupt viruses, okay? She called it a big word. I didn't write it down. I don't want to kind of try and remember what it was, okay? But she said that some of the drugs were the hydroxychloroquine, and ivermectin. She said there are many more drugs that will disrupt the virus, and she said why we are not using that and why we were not taught that in medical school. Okay, I can't remember what year she said she went to medical school, but she said it was way back in the day. Her son just graduated recently from medical school. She asked him if he had known anything about these drugs that would disrupt viral patterns, and he said no, that is not being taught in the medical schools. She said that is because the vaccine industry is the $69 billion industry, and the powers that be don't want to see that disrupted. She called the COVID vaccine, and remember, there's only two. AstraZeneca, that has not been approved yet. The Johnson & Johnson has not been approved yet here in the United States. The only one is the Pfizer and the Moderna. Both of those are mRNA vaccines. She says that those vaccines, now this is a medical opinion, she says those vaccines are not vaccines. She said they are experimental biologics. All right? So you might want to Google experimental biologics, okay? Because this medical doctor who has military training says that these are not vaccines. She says that the mRNA, and I've got notes scattered all over my desk. You've seen my desk when I've shown you how it works. We've got like a little patchwork quilt of notes on my desk. That the mRNA is going to program these spike proteins into your own cells so that your body will be creating the pathogen in your own body. Now, why would I want to do that? Okay? My body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, right? That's what the Bible says. That is what my body is. So I want to keep my body as pure as I can. So I don't do recreational drugs, don't smoke, don't do all those kind of nasty things, right? I try and live a godly lifestyle. Am I perfect? No, not perfect, but I really try and do what I need to do. I try and eat well. Try not to eat too much sugar. Try not to eat too many fast foods, processed foods, and that kind of thing. Why? Because my body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and the only thing that's going to keep me healthy is my own immune system. So where is the logic? And this is where critical thinking skills come in. Where is the logic of injecting something into my body that, number one, is synthetic because it's mRNA? They will tell you on their website, on the Moderna website, and I think on the Pfizer website too, they will tell you that this is synthetic DNA, all right? It's not organic DNA. I really don't want to put anything synthetic in my body any more than I just have to. I certainly don't want to put any synthetic DNA that's going to go into my cells and program my cells to make this spike protein. Now, one of the things that Dr. Merritt said, she said that this vaccine is a binary weapon, right? Let me back up there. She maybe said the virus. You're going to have to go and watch it yourself. But this is what she said. This is the first wave, the virus. It gets into the system. The second is going to come in maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years, and it's going to piggyback on that. If you already are making the spike proteins in your system, your body is not going to be aware of that second attack, right? She has history in biological warfare with the military. I think we need to listen to her. I don't think we need to be all conspiracy theory and that kind of thing. So I'm not there, but I am listening to a licensed, agreed professional with experience in biowarfare telling us what she thinks is happening with this COVID virus and the vaccine. So I'm trying to give you information because you're not going to hear this on the news. You're not going to hear this on the adverts on the television and the radio that say, oh, yay, come to XYZ Pharmacy because we're giving out the COVID-19 vaccine, or come stand in this line because we're giving out this vaccine. So you're not going to hear this. Now, maybe after you do your research, you're going to say, well, maybe I need to do this anyway. And if so, more power to you, okay? You are a adult. You can decide what is best for you. But I want you to have as much information as you possibly can have. I really want you to listen to this lady. She's very, very sound. I found her very credible. And she is saying things that I'm not hearing anywhere else. And so I want you to listen to this and weigh up the risk benefit to see if it's something that you want to do, okay? So remember, a few weeks ago, another doctor said that this is not a vaccine, this is a software platform, right? Why do I want to have a software platform in my body? Remember, there is a connection with transhumanism. Google those things, look at those things. Look at what China is doing to their military. Look at what DARPA, okay, which is an arm of the Pentagon. Look what they're doing with the transhumanism. So you just have to connect the dots, okay? Nobody's going to draw you a picture, certainly not in the mainstream media, but if you look at this, you look at this, you look at this, you look at this, you can make your own educated decision and do what is right for you and your family. I, for one, do not want my parents going or my friends going and having this vaccine and then coming to find out in a day or two that they've had full body convulsions, they've had seizures, they've had an aneurysm, whatever. Remember, we've talked about pathogenic priming. Go back and look at our videos Do a Google search on that, because all of that is very, very important for your long-term health. Remember, you are the one that is responsible for your long-term health. Nobody else. Nobody else really cares. I'm just saying that. The vaccine people, they don't care. All they want to do is sell their vaccines. Why is that? Because it is a $69 billion industry, right? They make money if you take the vaccine. You are going to be left with the medical issues, the medical expense, all that kind of thing. And remember, COVID-19 is 99.9% recoverable, according to this medical doctor that is going to be on the video that we're going to post here. So, giving you a lot of information. Just breathe. I'm going to post the video. You can watch the video, download the video so nobody steals it from you, okay? And do your own research and make the best possible decision for you and your family. It is the weekend. Love you guys. Take care of yourself. Do self-care. And I will see you next week. Bye.